Welcome to this episode of the story. Have you subscribed yet? Chapter 85. Lingxi Town's preparations for war and the unfolding conspiracy. The atmosphere in Lingxi Town was solemn. The news brought by Sumu was like a heavy bomb, setting off huge waves in everyone's hearts. Everyone sat around with serious expressions, their eyes revealing both worry and determination. Sumu looked at the crowd and was the first to break the silence. Everyone, the conspiracy of the mysterious force and the spiritual equilibrators endangers the entire spirit fantasy realm. Although Lingxi Town is small, we can't stand by and do nothing. An elder frowned and said, "But they are powerful. We've seen the methods of the spiritual equilibrators. Can we really contend with them just with our Lingxi Town?" Sumu's gaze was firm. We have the reverse, time, spiritual power, and more importantly, we have unity. That's our confidence. Moreover, the more we know about their conspiracy, the greater our chances of winning. Grandfather nodded beside him. Muar is right. Instead of being afraid and backing down, we might as well fight with all our might. Everyone responded in unison and decided to start preparing for war immediately. The cultivators in Lingxi Town were divided into several groups. Some were responsible for strengthening the defensive works in the town, setting up more powerful spiritual power shields and traps around. They were busy day and night, making the most of the terrain around Lingxi Town. Every patch of grass and every boulder was equipped with spiritual power mechanisms. Once an enemy intruded, a powerful counterattack would be triggered. Another group, under Sumu's guidance, studied the method of combining the reverse time spiritual power with their own spiritual power, trying to enhance the overall combat effectiveness. Sumo patiently explained the characteristics and application techniques of the reverse time spiritual power to everyone. Through repeated demonstrations, the cultivators gradually mastered some simple combination methods. Although they couldn't reach Sumo's level, with team cooperation, they could still achieve unexpected results. There was also a group in charge of gathering intelligence. They disguised themselves and scattered to various places, closely monitoring the movements of the spiritual equilibrators and the mysterious assassins. They shuttled between towns, communicating and prying for information from various forces, not missing any potentially useful details. While preparing for war, Sumu didn't stop cultivating the reverse, time spiritual power. He delved into the information about the eye of the spiritual abyss and the secret letter, trying to figure out the connection between how the mysterious force intended to use the reverse, time spiritual power, and the eye of the spiritual abyss, thus finding the key to cracking the conspiracy. Every day, he secluded himself for cultivation in the valley behind Lingxi Town, repeatedly fusing and practicing with the reverse, time spiritual power, the spiritual spring spiritual power, and the space spiritual power, constantly exploring the potential of the combination of these three types of spiritual powers. As his cultivation deepened, Sumu discovered that after combining the reverse, time spiritual power with the space spiritual power, it could not only exert great power in battle, but also be used to peer into the cracks of time and space. He tried to use this characteristic to sense the general direction of the eye of the spiritual abyss. During a deep cultivation session, Sumo entered a wonderful state. He seemed to be able to see the veins of spiritual power flow in the spirit fantasy realm. Following one of the strange veins, he faintly felt the unique spiritual power fluctuation emanating from the eye of the spiritual abyss, which seemed to be in the distant north. At the same time, the people who went out to gather intelligence gradually brought back news. They found that the spiritual equilibrators and the mysterious assassins were gathering their strength, seemingly preparing for a large-scale operation. Moreover, near an ancient city in the north, there were a large number of abnormal spiritual power fluctuations, which was consistent with the direction in which Sumu sensed the eye of the spiritual abyss. Sumu realized that the mysterious force was likely to have known the whereabouts of the eye of the spiritual abyss and was preparing to act there. After learning this news, everyone in Lingxi Town immediately held an emergency meeting. Sumu said, "It seems that they can't hold back anymore. We must act in advance and find the eye of the spiritual abyss before them. We must never let the mysterious force succeed," Grandfather said worriedly. "Muir, this journey will surely be full of dangers. The spiritual equilibrators and the mysterious assassins must have laid a tight net in that city." Sumu smiled slightly. "Grandfather, don't worry. We're well prepared." Everyone has made remarkable progress in cultivation during this period, and we also have a secret weapon. The secret weapon Sumu mentioned was a spiritual power amplification formation he had developed, which could enhance everyone's spiritual power at a critical moment. After making all the preparations, Sumu led the elite forces of Lingxi town on the journey to the north. Along the way, everyone was cautious, constantly vigilant about the surrounding movements. When they approached the ancient city, they found that the place was deathly silent. The once prosperous town was now deserted, as if shrouded in a layer of gloom. Sumu signaled everyone to stay vigilant and used the perception ability of the reverse, time spiritual power and the space spiritual power to explore whether there were any traps or enemy ambushes around. The moment they stepped into the city, a large number of mysterious assassins suddenly emerged from all around, darting out from every corner like ghosts, surrounding them tightly. The assassins were dressed in black, tight-fitting clothes, their eyes cold, and the blades in their hands glistened with cold light. Sumu quickly shouted, "Everyone, don't panic!" Form the spiritual power defense formation as practiced before. The cultivators of Lingxi town quickly moved, cooperating closely to form a solid defensive circle. The assassins launched an attack, surging towards the defensive circle like a tide. Sumu used the reverse Time Guardian shield, covering the defensive circle with it. The assassin's blades struck the shield, splashing sparks, but they couldn't break through the shield's defense. However, the assassins didn't give up. They continuously changed their attack methods, trying to find the flaw in the defensive circle. While maintaining the shield, Sumo observed the actions of the assassins. He found that although the assassins' attacks seemed chaotic, there was actually a certain pattern, as if guiding them to move in a certain direction. An idea flashed in Sumo's mind. He realized that this might be the enemy's conspiracy. He loudly reminded everyone, "Don't be led by them. Keep the formation and take the initiative to attack." With that, Sumu used the reverse, time retrospective slash, and a spiritual power blade containing powerful time force slash towards the assassins. Where the spiritual power blade passed, the assassins dodged one after another, but many were still hit by the time force. Their bodies instantly aged, and their combat effectiveness was greatly reduced. Inspired by Sumu, the cultivators of Lingxi town, one after another used their respective moves combined with the reverse time spiritual power. For a moment, lights flashed, and spiritual power roared. With the concerted efforts of everyone, the assassin's encirclement was gradually broken. But at this moment, a group of spiritual equilibrators suddenly appeared in the sky above the city. Looking down from a high position, they unleashed powerful spiritual power spells, and streams of spiritual power beams shot towards Sumu and the others. Sumu looked up, a hint of determination flashing in his eyes. He quickly circulated the reverse, time spiritual power, the spiritual spring spiritual power, and the space spiritual power, and used the reverse, time spiritual space barrier. A huge barrier that integrated the power of time, spiritual spring, and space appeared above everyone, blocking the attacks of the spiritual equilibrators. The spiritual power beams hit the barrier, bursting out a dazzling light and a strong impact, and the ground trembled violently. The leader of the spiritual equilibrators stood in the air, looking coldly at Sumu. "Kid, you do have some skills, but you can't escape today. The eye of the spiritual abyss is ours. No one can stop us," Sumo shouted back. "You people who stop at nothing to achieve your goals, don't even think about getting the eye of the spiritual abyss. We will definitely stop your conspiracy." The two sides were engaged in a fierce confrontation. The spiritual equilibrators continuously launched attacks, trying to destroy the defenses of Sumu and the others, while Sumu and the cultivators of Lingxi town tenaciously resisted. They knew that once the defense line was broken through, the conspiracy of the mysterious force might succeed, and the spirit fantasy realm would be plunged into eternal damnation. In this intense battle, Sumu suddenly noticed a tiny gap among the spiritual power spells of the spiritual equilibrators. He secretly rejoiced. This might be an opportunity for a counterattack. Sumu quickly informed everyone of his discovery and signaled everyone to prepare for a counterattack. He concentrated all his spiritual power and used the reverse, time-space, rending blast, a new move he created by combining the reverse, time, space, and spiritual powers. A spiritual power ball containing powerful explosive force shot towards the gap in the spiritual power spells of the spiritual equilibrators. The moment the spiritual power ball came into contact with the spiritual power spells, it triggered a violent explosion. The powerful impact disrupted the attacks of the spiritual equilibrators. The cultivators of Lingxi town seized the opportunity and used their most powerful moves one after another. For a moment, various spiritual power lights intertwined and rushed towards the spiritual equilibrators. The spiritual equilibrators didn't expect Sumu and the others to take the initiative to counter-attack, and the counter-attack was so fierce. They were caught off guard. Under the attacks of Sumu and the others, some spiritual equilibrators were injured and fell from the sky. Seeing this, the leader of the spiritual equilibrators was furious. He let out a roar and used the ultimate spiritual power spell of the spiritual equilibrators, the Spirit Fantasy Judgment Light. A huge golden spiritual power column descended from the sky, crashing towards Sumu and the others with the power to destroy heaven and earth. Sumu felt the terrifying power of this move. He knew that this was the full power strike of the leader of the spiritual equilibrators. If they couldn't resist it, all of them would lose their lives. Sumo quickly circulated all the spiritual power in his body and activated the spiritual power amplification formation prepared before. Under the effect of the formation, the spiritual power of Sumo and the cultivators of Lingxi town instantly increased several times. Sumo used the enhanced version of the reverse, time spiritual space guardian barrier, protecting everyone inside.
The golden spiritual power column hit the barrier, bursting out an earth-shattering 巨响. The light illuminated the entire city. The barrier trembled violently under the powerful impact and was on the verge of breaking at any moment. Sumo gritted his teeth and tried his best to maintain the stability of the barrier. The cultivators of Lingxi town also injected their spiritual power into the barrier one after another, resisting together with Sumo. With the efforts of everyone, the power of the Spirit Fantasy Judgment Light was gradually weakened and finally dissipated in the air. The leader of the spiritual equilibrators was shocked and angry when he saw that his ultimate spell was broken, but he knew that continuing to entangle was not in their favor. So he waved his hand and quickly led the remaining spiritual equilibrators and mysterious assassins to retreat. Sumo watched their departing figures without relaxing his vigilance. He knew that this was just the prelude to a greater crisis. The mysterious force in the spiritual equilibrators would never give up easily, and they had to find the eye of the spiritual abyss as soon as possible, uncover the truth of the conspiracy, and save the spirit fantasy realm. Sumo led everyone to continue exploring in the city. They discovered some mysterious runes and clues, all seemingly pointing to a certain mysterious area underground in the city. Sumo speculated that the eye of the spiritual abyss was likely hidden there, but entering this mysterious area was not easy. They needed to solve a series of complex spiritual power puzzles and mechanisms. Sumo and the cultivators of Lingxi town moved forward cautiously. Every step was filled with unknowns and dangers. In a narrow passage, they encountered a huge spiritual power stone door. The door was engraved with strange runes, exuding a powerful spiritual power fluctuation. Sumo carefully studied the runes, trying to find a way to open the door. After some effort, he found that these runes had a subtle connection with the reverse, time spiritual power. Sumo circulated the reverse, time spiritual power, and injected the spiritual power into the runes in a specific order. As the spiritual power was injected, the runes glowed brightly, and the stone door slowly opened. Behind the door was a huge space. All around were placed various ancient spiritual power artifacts. In the center was a stone platform from which a faint light was emanating, as if something was calling out to them. The story continues. More exciting content is coming up. Subscribe as soon as possible.